Hi everybody. In this video we are going to do the very first guitar solo, which is just after the second verse in Mr. Crowley. I'm going to try and break this down measure by measure. I'm going to talk about the chords that are in the rhythm track underneath, and we're going to talk about some of the phrases that Randy always uses, different variations of it. Most of you will notice which ones I'm talking about. And then there are the places where Randy kind of goes crazy a little bit, and we're going to talk about those too. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to start with the very first measure. In the rhythm track underneath, you're just getting just a D power chord, or if you want to play the full chord with D minor, that's what Randy was playing over. So now this very first lick, you're going to notice that it's something that Randy used a lot. He used it in Goodbye to Romance, he used it in Crazy Train, he's using it here. And they all have slight variations of what he's doing to them. So this very first one, over the D minor chord, you're going to love this phrase. So it's going to start on the 12th fret, G string, with a nice big bend. Next two notes are going to be the 10th fret on the B and E string, which are going to give you A and D. And the phrase is going to end with your pinky with this pentatonic kind of feel. It's going to be C and A on the B string. Here it is slow. You're going to repeat that 4 times. At the end of the 4th one, he grabs the D note on the high E string one more time. So as you're looking at the tabs on the screen here, that's kind of where we are. Very first measure. Now the next measure, he's going to come all the way down to the B flat chord in the rhythm section. And he's going to go crazy with this little pentatonic thing, which you'll see Randy does this a lot, and it's really comfortable, fun to play once you build it up to speed. We're going to start on the high E string, 13th fret, and then the 10th fret, which is going to give you F and D. B string, we're going to go to the 13th fret, which is going to be C. Back to the high E string, 10th fret, which is D. So here's what you have so far. Next part of this phrase is going to be the B string, 13-10, 13-10. He does it twice. G string, 12th fret, G. Back to the 10th fret on the B string, which is your A. Now we're going to go back to the G string, and we're going to play G, F, G, F. Now we're going to move down to the D string, 12, which is going to be your D. 10th fret back on the G string, which is your F. So here's what you have so far. Slow. Now he's going to end this phrase on the D string here. We're going to go 12, 10, 12, 10, which is going to be D, C, D, C. Back to the 12 on the A. 10 on the D string, which is your C. Back to the A string again, 12. Back to the D string, 10. So now you're at the second measure over the B flat chord. Here's what you have slow. Now we're going to move to the third measure, which Randy goes to the C chord. And we're going to kind of continue this pentatonic feel. So we're going to start with the D string, 12, 10, 12, which is going to give you D, C, D. And this, because of the speed that Randy's playing, you're going to see this a lot, where there's a whole bunch of little notes like that. So we're going to move up to the G string, 10th fret, and you're going to get 10, 10, 10, which is F, F, and F. 12, which is your G. Moving up to the B string, we're going to 10th fret, which is your A. Back to the 12, which is G. Back to the B string, 10, 10. And at this point, he's going to move up to this shape, which is going to be the 12 and 15 on the B string. Now here's where Randy has one of these crazy little fills that he does. This one's kind of cool too. I love this. So it's going to be 13, 13, which is F, F. And then here you're going to go to the A flat or G sharp. In this case, it's going to be A flat. So we're going to have A flat, G, and F. We're going to move all the way up here to the 18th fret, and we're going to play 18, 16, 15. We're going to play the 18 twice, which is going to be your B flat, A flat, and G. So here's what you have. So here's what you have slow. Now we're going to move all the way up to the 20th fret, and we're going to play 20, 18, 17. The 20 is twice here as well. After the 17, you're going to play the 20 again. So here it is, slow. And that's where that phrase is going to end for that measure. Next measure is going to be a great big bend. End of that measure is going to go from 20, 17 to 20, which is going to be back to your C, A, and C. So you have your big bend on C. Next measure, which comes back down to the B flat chord, we're going to start on the 17th fret. Now this one's kind of clustered together a little bit, but it's pretty comfortable. So we're going to have 17, 18, 17, which is going to be your A and B flat. B string, we're going to have 20, 17, 20, which is going to be your G, E, and C. So here that is again. Then he goes back to the 17, 18, 17, which is going to be E and F. And he ends it with 20. That's the odd kind of ending to that. Now your fingers are lined up for this next little phrase on the high E string, which is going to be 18, 17, 15, which is going to be B flat, A, and G. Back to the 17, which is going to be your A, and pull off to G. So here's what you have. B string, we're going to do 18, 17, 15, continuing that same kind of shape, that same kind of pattern. So we're going to have F, E, and D, E, D, and C, D to C, and we're at the next measure already. And I'm going to show you this chord here real quick that's under this phrase. It's a E minor 7 flat 5. It's also your E half diminished chord. So it's going to be the 7th fret, 8th fret, 7th fret, 8th fret on the B string. So we're going to use our first finger on the A string, 7, which gives you your E. Your ring finger is playing the 8th fret on the D string, which is your B flat. Your middle finger, which is playing the G string 7, is your D note. And then on the B string, you're playing the 8th fret, which is your G. Very dissonant sounding kind of chord. Anyway, so here's back to where we were. So I'm going to do the measure just before that chord comes into play. I'm going to do it really slow. Now here's the measure with the E flat, E minor 7 flat 5. It's going to be the G string 14, B string 13, which is going to give you A and C. And then Randy jumps back to this pentatonic shape kind of thing going on. So we have B flat and G on the G string, and 15 on the D string, which is your F. Back to the 12th fret G on your G string. And he's going to end it with 14, 12, 14, which is going to be E, D, E. And the very last note in this measure is a great big bend on the 15. All right, next measure. Going to be under an A chord and an A suspended 4 chord. So you can get away with your power chord here. The suspended 4 is adding the D. Anyway, so the first 3 notes are going to be 15, which is just your G, 13, which is F, and then Randy goes to this little hammer-on pull-off thing that he loves to do, 12, 13, 12, which is your E and F, B string 15, which is your D, back to the high E 12, Now the next measure, going to go back to your A chord, and it's just a bend on the 15 on your B string, which is D. Whole bunch of vibrato, you can use your bar or whatever. Okay, so the next measure, Randy goes back to that pentatonic feel over the D minor again. And for these kind of licks, it's about getting them clean and up to a speed. Don't put these under a microscope, because these books and the way that Randy was playing it was just so high speed that he was getting a whole bunch of extra notes. And if you try to put this under a microscope and get the exact same little accidents, we should say, you know what I mean, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So here's the phrase. I'm going to give it to you note for note, and then you can kind of build up your speed to where you want it to be. So we're going to start on the high E string, 13-10, which is going to be your F and D. B string, 13th fret, which is C. Back to the 10th fret on the high E. Back to the 13. So the notes that you're going to get through this whole phrase, so I don't have to keep calling them out for you. So we're going to get an F, we're going to get D, you're going to see C, and you're going to see the 10th fret on the B string, which is going to be your A. So here's the actual phrase. 13, 10, 13 on the B, 10 on the high E, 13 on the B. Back to your high E string, which is 10, 13, 10. And again, high speed. Randy added 2 extra notes here. 10th fret. Back to 13. High E string, 10, 13, 10. Back to the B string, 13. Back to the high E, 10. Back to the 13, 10 on the B string. Same thing on the high E, 13, 10. B string, 13. High E 10, B string 13, high E 10. I know this sounds crazy at this speed. It just sounds like a whole bunch of 13, 10, 13, 10, 13, 10, and it kind of is. That's why I'm saying when you learn these slow, you'll start to see where you get extra notes kind of stuck in there. So the next measure, Randy drops down to the B flat chord, and he continues with this pattern. So it's 13, 10, on the high E, back to the B string 13, high E 10, B string 13, high E 10, 13, 10, back to the B string 13, high E 10, B string 13, 10, high E 13, 10, B string 13, 10 on the high E, 13, 10 on the B, same thing on the high E, 13, 10, back to the B string 13, high E 10, and then the last 2 notes in this measure are 13, 10 on the B string. So this is what I was talking about when Randy at high speed starts to get extra notes kind of thing going into it. So the actual last note of this phrase, of this measure where the chord is B flat, the last note actually lands in the next measure as the very first note, which is 10. So here are the last let's do last 4 notes in that measure, and then we'll go to the next one. So it's going to be 13, 10, 13, 10. The very next note, next measure, what I'm talking about is that 10 over the C chord is where he ended that phrase. And then he jumps to something completely different, which we're going to do right now. So we're going to start on the 8th fret, B string, which is going to give you G. He's going to hammer to the A and slide back to the G. So here's what we have. This is going to be one of those phrases where you can tell Randy just went for it. So here it is again. Next part of the phrase, he's going to be at the 5th fret, and he's going to do this whole slide thing, 5, 6, 5, 3. Now this very next note should stand out to you. 4th fret on the B string, which is going to be your E flat. He grabs the 4 down to the 1. Then he goes to the 3rd fret, which is going to be your D, back down to the C. So here's what we have so far. Then he jumps into a phrase that he's done a million times. Now we're going to be back at the 6th fret on the B string, which is going to be your F. Pull off to E. G string, 7th fret, which is your D, which which is the little phrase right there. Now we're back to the B string, which is going to be 5, 6, 5, 6, high E, 5, 6, 5, 8 on the B, back to the high E, 5. That's the end of this measure under the C chord. All right, so the next measure in this solo is measure number 12. It's over a D minor chord, and it's that big, beautiful bend that Randy loves to do. He did this one in Diary of a Madman too. It's going to be on the 8th fret, which is your G, on the B string. Here it is. And then he grabs the note 2 more times. Now, I'm not actually playing along with the track, obviously, so it might be a little bit there. Then he comes down from the bend. Okay, so the next measure is over a B flat chord, and Randy's going to come up to the B string and grab the 6th fret, which is your F, G string 7, which is your D, a little bit of vibrato at the end of that, then he hits the note again. Now he's going to do the pull off from 7 to 5, which is going to be your D to C, B string F to E, back to the G string, D to C. Now he's going to go into this little bluesy thing here, which is going to be 7, 6, 5. And he's going to grab the 8 on the A string, which is going to be your F. So you have A flat, G, F. Back to the D string for the next measure is going to be 5, 6, 5, which is going to be your G and A flat. Back to the F on the A string. Back to the 5th fret on the D string, which is your G. 8, 5 on the A string, which is going to be your F, and then D. He's going to slide to 4. A little bit of a dissonant note there. And then he's going to jump up to the D string again and do the 5, 3, 5. 5 on the A string, right? A string 3, 5. D string 3. Back to the D note, 5th fret on the A string. That's a mouthful. Anyway, let's do that one, that measure again, nice and slow, starting on the 5, 6, 5. When you play it that slow, it's really a bluesy lick, isn't it? So here it is again. Now we're down to the last 2 measures of this. So the next note that he's going to grab after this 5, beginning of the next measure, is going to be the 7th fret on the A string, which is your E. And he's going to do this 3 times with a little bit of vibrato. 1, 2, 3. And then the 4th time he plays the note, he's going to slide down to the 4th fret, which is your C sharp. And then the measure 16 is just your open A string and a dive bomb. So here's that measure again, starting on the 7. And that's the end of the first guitar solo. Learn this one nice and slow, and like I said, and I'm always going to say this, don't put it under a microscope and try and play it note for note. You have to find your comfort zone. You have to find, once that the lick turns into a little bit of a higher speed kind of thing, you're going to find all these comfortable little spots. You're going to find your way through it. Have a good time with this one. See you in the next video.